Okay. Hi, Soul Family, and welcome to Haja Hill's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Haji, and this is Amazing NDE Stories. Our guest today is SteveNoack. Am I saying that correctly? No.
Yes.
SteveNoack. Steve, welcome to the show. I like to start with a quick breathing exercise to help calm me down. And then also the guests and help you to maybe remember some things and just open up all of your energies. So as we breathe in, I want us to, we're going to count to 7 in our heads, and we're going to bring in all goodness, light, love, all that good stuff. And then breathe out on the count of 8 and release any negativity, darkness, anxiety, stress. And we're going to do that 3 times. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So let's begin now. I feel better. That was great. All right. So I'm also going to just quickly set the intention. I'm going to surround myself, Steve, and the viewers in protected divine light, love, a protective shield. And I ask that the one and infinite creative, or whatever name you use, go crazy. Clear and cleanse this communication. Ensure that only truths are spoken. That this information increase the viewer in healing, knowledge, and wisdom, and that all that is transmitted is of light and goodness. So be it. So I'm going to ask Steve to just jump into his story and share your wonderful NDE.
Thank you. So while I was 4 years old, I was driving a big wheel, which is a small plastic tricycle, and I was about to cross the street, go back home, and I went between 2 parked cars, and there was another car coming down the road, and I collided with the car and then went underneath the car. And then the car continued going because she was drinking for probably another 20, 30 feet with me under the car. So what I remember is leaving the driveway like a blur. And next thing I know is the scene sort of faded to black and then opened up again. I could briefly see myself, and I saw my eyes go in the back of my head, like roll back. And next thing I know is I'm waking up, or what I thought was waking up, and I'm leaning on what I thought was a person. And so I open my eyes and my head is kind of down, and I catch the glimpse of long, white, almost silvery hair. And it was almost touching the ground. And then the bottom of like a robe, is the best way I could describe it. And I'm thinking, who is this? You know, I'm leaning on them. They're comforting me. I turn to see who it is. And it's a hooded figure that has no face. They only have light for a face. And so for a minute, I'm staring. Then I ask what happened. And they said, you were in an accident. Everything's going to be fine. Just put your head down. And I put my head down, and I'm staring at this, being's face, and I'm getting pulled into it. And I can feel it. And I'm thinking, as we were communicating, that I didn't move my lips, and I'm looking at this light, and I'm not squinting. Like, I just remember having those brief thoughts throughout it. So as I'm staring at this being's face and I'm enamored, I'm feeling pulled in, and I get a glimpse of what I would think to be, heaven, how we would describe it. There's people there, and they're off in the distance playing. I can sense like elderly people. And then I feel a wave of like children's laughter, and it's almost like its own entity, and it comes through me, and I'm instantly like touched with the knowing that everything was one, and it all came from there. And I'm like, I want to go there. I knew instantly there was no suffering, pain, all that. And it wasn't that it didn't exist. It was that it couldn't manifest. It was vibrating so high and so pure and clean that it wouldn't be able to manifest there. Pain, suffering, hate. So I wanted to go. And they basically said it wasn't my time. They had some other things to show me. And the next thing I knew is I'm standing in almost like a dark room, but it's like a blueprint. And you could see, or I could see, buildings and creation and things as it was. But I could see behind it, there was a blueprint, and there was almost like an energetic structure to everything that was built on that blueprint. And they spoke about people using their thoughts seated into their heart to create their reality. They spoke about, they showed me the Trinity, but they showed me 3 points of energy. It was in like a triangle, and it came into this, they all met in the center, and in the center was my heart. And they told me this was 0 point. And they talked, let's see what else. I don't want to get too far off track. They talked about spending our energy to experience reality on a spiritual level and an emotional level. And they showed me, they said, you know, this is you as energy. And I was just this beam of light coming down. And it was almost like a wagon wheel. And they said, you spend your energy, or humans spend their energy, and it extends to the quantum field and then comes back through their system to experience reality. So it was like a spoke out into this outer rim. And in the outer rim, it held like memories as data. And they talked a lot about our system being very much like a computer with storage to cellular memory, subconscious mind of programs, and also the electric potential held within a human being by simply knowing its own identity as sovereign. To be able to gather the hidden electric potential within our body and discharge basically the lower energies within us, the lower aspects of our personalities. You know, a lot of the things people label today as mental illness and a lot of other things, physical things like that, childhood trauma, you name it, you can discharge it because it's stored in your body. So they talked about that. They also showed me a divine blueprint. They said all human beings were made in the image of their creator. And this is like an energetic image, if you will, for lack of a better word, because there really are no words for these things. So we all have a divine blueprint. We were all made in the image of the creator, but the key is we have to believe we are that, just like we believe we're all these other things that the world tells us, and that everything runs on identity and embodiment. So whatever energy you're embodying, believing, creating in your thought forms, that's going to be the reality you experience. It's so, and then they taught me about the matrix, a lot about that, and how there's going to be so many things coming for your thoughts, your emotions, and then your identity. And that's why it's important to know yourself as sovereign, because then you're out of that trap, put it that way. But it's all been a deep teaching. Let's see what else. Yeah, I had the NDE at 4. I remember it was hard to remember initially at 4, of course. I knew something different had happened, but I remembered again in my teens. I remembered the visit, the things we talked about, not all of it, but I never felt comfortable sharing it, of course. You know, people are going to say you're crazy, but I can't. The only thing I could say is when it came back and I got access to the memories, it was rock solid, like I knew it, you know, like you don't forget. So years go by, I kind of hide it, And then in my 30s, I have another car accident, flip a car over 5 times, doing about 75. I was pretty reckless. Yeah. So I'm having surgery shortly after that, and the voice returns because I was feeling very anxious. And it was like this energy started from my toes and went to my head and just enveloped me in like almost like a casket. That's all I can say. It just enveloped me. And the voice spoke to me again, and it said, everything's going to be fine. Said my name, my full name, Steven, which usually nobody says, Steven. So that's when I knew instantly that was the voice, that was the being I spoke to. And then it was a whole opening of awakening and harsh psychic realities and time loops and witnessing silhouettes walking around me like all hours of the day, engaging me in conversation and stuff I wasn't aware of before. You know, I was basically a skeptic to a point. So, and then the Arcturians came, you know, alien, interdimensional, who were working for the good. And they told me a bunch of things that I didn't believe. And I was trying to shut everything out for a while. When this voice returned to me again, they talked about human design and ascension and humanity's evolution and purification, a lot about purification. So basically breaking through the wall, making the positive and negative one, making heaven and earth one. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else that comes up. There's just so much in there.
Yeah, so I'm realizing just as I'm writing, I don't know if you can see me, I'm like this because there's so many questions. I don't think we'll do it where it's like you just tell the story and then like I think we're going to jump straight into question and answers because I think there's also a lot of things that if you could explain in more detail, because here's the thing I noticed it's, and I know this for myself as well, but when you have a lot of information and with you, you have like a gazillion downloads that came during and after and things that are so extreme, sometimes you can't even explain it in human terms. It can become like jumbled and you're not pulling out the things that are the most interest, not the most important for humanity. And there's
Mm-hmm.
so much, like pretty much everything that you're mentioning is something that we all need to know. So I want to make sure we really get into this and dive in and I'll ask questions so that it's clear to everybody what you're saying and what it means for them, right? Okay. So, and one thing I noticed, and I'm going to try to keep it in order, but there's a lot of different things. Well, I'll work on that. But I noticed that the being during the second NDE said your full name because I had heard you
Mm-hmm.
in previous interviews, and I'm like, that's interesting. Like we should stop and think about that for a minute, because I've also heard where other NDEers they say the name that they were either supposed to have or like they had initially. Like it's very much like when you have a name, when you come into this earth, there is a name for you. Whether you change it to Joe Smo or you have some kind of
Mm-hmm.
tag or you have that name. So it's very interesting. We should keep that in mind. All right, so you uh, I have the normal questions. So let me start with the normal questions and then I'll add the ones I just put in here. So what were the religious beliefs that your family had? Because I mean, your first NDE you were four. So I don't know that you had your own decision in what religion. What did you grow up around or if anything?
What I grew up around abandonment.
Oh,
No, but really, we had no religious beliefs. You know, I went to church twice as a ring bearer, and that was really it. And then none growing up. You know, I largely, I knew something happened to me, but I didn't believe in God because what had God done for me? You know, I was of that mindset in my youth.
so when things got really hard for you, like what energy did you go towards? What did you make up something in your mind? Like what was your safety net, if anything?
Uh, at what age?
I guess when you started to notice the abandonment and
Oh
the
my
problem.
gosh, addictions, whatever was toxic, because you repeated those programs that you witnessed in childhood.
Mm.
And, I had to I had to become accountable to what I was creating that wasn't love. And then that was the end of the story.
Now here's the question. I almost wonder, I mean, everything happens for a reason, and you have the whole pre-planning idea. I think you might believe in pre-planning. Is that correct? That you pre-planned that NDE, or do you think this just happened?
I'm not sure about the NDE. I think I pre-planned a type of experience. I don't know if it had to be that, but yeah, definitely. I remember I have memories of being at a console with other light beings and programming certain things within a baseline parameter, you know?
Okay. Okay, with room to play around,
Yeah, it
right?
was
Yeah.
almost like I remember logging into a video game. And
Oh, that's
it's like
awesome.
now I'm gaining the memories of this quantum leap back.
That's awesome. And so having let's focus. I'm trying to go in order here. So let's focus on the being without a face in the robe. Kind of sounds like Gandalf to me because I love sci-fi. I'm a sci-fi, fanatic, and we're starting to see that our whole life pretty much is sci-fi-ish, you know.
Hmm.
So it sounds like Gandalf without a face. Um, did that being not make you feel like later on when you had those problems, you didn't feel like that is my support system, like that's who I can go to for protection or
Um, I mean, I had a few glimpses, but I was so mired in my programs and I never really fully believed, and
oh,
that's the thing.
oh, okay. So for all this stuff to happen to someone who really didn't believe, like was kind of fighting it, is just even more just
Well, I
extreme.
resisted it and resisted it and resisted it,
Yeah.
until it was, until I couldn't deny it, until I was touching people and they were getting healed. And, the weird things were happening until they compounded one after the other. And it was just too much.
Yeah. And
I
that's the
was either
beautiful.
crazy or something was happening.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the beautiful thing about it is that like a lot of people will say, okay, maybe you just, you're crazy or you want it to happen, delusions, etc. But when it's happening to somebody who's just like, no, 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 like completely like, this is not
Yeah.
happening. I'm ignoring you, go away. You
Yeah. I
know?
was a retail store manager at a video game store, a well-known
Yeah,
one. But,
yeah.
I, I was terrified. You know what I mean? Like having all of a sudden this current of energy in me. And it was like, feeling all these different emotions. I would hear people's thoughts. I would feel their hunger. And it was a crazy game to figure out what was going
Oh,
on. Um, but I didn't really know anything about that world,
yeah.
because I never looked into it.
Yeah, and that's one of well, not to say the problems, but it's an issue in the world that we live in now that we've become so separate from spirit. So when people are having these experiences, it's even harder. It's like, who the heck do you talk to about this? That's not going to lock
Hmm.
you up. It's not
Oh
going to
yeah,
shoot you straight.
my family wanted me to see a shrink. All of a sudden I'm talking about the quantum realm and God. And I tried to go to every single church I could to try to talk to people, and they didn't
Mm,
know anything. They knew nothing about this spiritual war for our energy that I all of a sudden knew about. For some
and
reason, it just, bam, I knew.
and you go into places where this is their job, like this is what they preach all day long. Like this is what gets me when I hear these stories. You literally are talking about Satan, and you have different words for it, but Satan and the devil and the and good versus evil. And when someone's actually having a real world experience of this, it's like we
Hmm.
can't help you. Get out of
Yeah.
here. Those are
There's
demons.
no there's no connection to like the
It's
logic or the
like,
practical reality of energies.
yes. And even now, like, I'll see some of these I'll see some of the responses that people have regarding NDEs when they're really mired in a particular religion, and it's never positive. They never respect the fact that this is what's happening. They respect the
Hmm.
fact that their religious founder went through this, but not someone else in today. So it's
I
interesting.
firmly believe that Jesus, or the story of, was teaching us or showing us what to do. This is how you do it. And it's like they a lot of people still miss that, but making the two one and just following that message kind of became my journey in purification and spending the time doing that. But the religion, I learned, for me, God, the energy, becoming a singular aspect of God, the embodiment, the Christ, whatever you want to call it, was a feeling and a charge. And I could build upon it and then pay attention to when it dissipated or when it got grounded in an area it shouldn't have been. And then restore that charge and just keep building on it. Just like rubbing my feet on the carpet and shocking someone.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't grow up Christian, but I've always loved Jesus. I mean, it's a very weird thing, but I just always felt that energy, whatever it is, of him and his teachings. And it makes pure, I've never understood them saying he's a savior. Like, there's a lot of things, obviously, that I kind of like, okay, you're eating the body of God and drinking his blood. This sounds very satanic. Like, stop with
Right.
this.
Well, they tell you you're the body of Christ, but they don't tell you how to embody the Christ. How to make the two one, how to create a 0 point, how to become the law of one in the flesh, whatever you want to call it, you know.
It's a lot of hijacking, and people have to understand that. Like, and it's hard when you're in religion. I know this because I've been there. That's why I can speak to this. But you get so blinded, and they tell you not to ask questions. The truth can withstand all questions. Question
It's
all
all
day.
it's all disconnection. Well, I mean, church is good for community, I'll say that. But as far as answers and real bread, real meat, no. It's going to disconnect the mind from the heart. And this is what you want, because through your thoughts, you can free your whole system. If you can send that signal from your mind to your gut and know as truth that you're sovereign energy and feel it in your body, then you begin to integrate sovereign energy.
Yes. And it is as we're having this conversation, something that I've never understood is kind of becoming clear to me, is why they call him the savior, why they would call, Yeshua, the savior.
Well, there's a couple parts in the Bible where he says, "No, I'm your brother," and then there's another part where the woman's worshiping the infant, and God says, "Be careful who you worship. Worship only God." So all the signs are there. It's just,
well, I'm saying savior now because I mean, I see how they thought that, and that's why I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense. But in regards to he's coming to teach you, how to save yourself,
yeah,
then you
how
can
to do
see
the
it in that
shadow
way.
work, how to
Yes.
break through that wall of separation, the veil, how to
Yeah.
make the scapegoat sacrifice.
Yeah.
But the message was repeated over and over and over and over. And you see a theme until it became flesh and it couldn't go any further. And then it's like, I'm here. You're going to get it now?
And still no. And still
No.
no.
And when they talk about the descending and then the ascending, they're talking about the thought going all the way down, becoming reality, and then all the way back up, making the two one, and there's a lot to it with the vertebrae and the spine. And obviously the abstinence and transforming that energy, conquering, your even most carnal impulses.
Yes.
Then you're free to choose to participate.
Is this tied to the Christ oil, the oil that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Um, okay. And is it okay? Are the chakras also, because you're talking about the spine that goes into Kundalini, etc., is that also something that is positive, or regarding like goodness, or is it regarding darkness? Only because the raw material mentions how important the chakras are. They talk about it constantly, but they said something that's always stayed in the back of my mind, and I wish I had wrote it down so I could be very clear about this. But they just mentioned that this particular energy is maybe not particularly 100% positive. Like
No, it's gray. It can be either good or bad depending on what you embody. Keep that in mind. It's going to awaken what you embody. And then are you going to feed that cycle? Yeah, there's non-human interdimensional entities that are going to love to eat that. So there comes a sense of responsibility and accountability for understanding that it's sacred. And just like anything else you abuse, yeah.
Yeah, because I started to realize that it's like for a lot of people now with awakening, and especially if they're not, they're just recently awakening, we're like little babes walking around and swaddling around in confusion. And I noticed that right away. I have made a very quick video where I just, I'm not getting out to as many people as I want, but I just anyone who would listen, just kind of be careful. Like we are in the lower, like a very low realm
Hmm.
as far as I'm concerned. I feel it, and the more you purify, and I'm sure you can attest to this, as we're both on sovereignty purification, like we kind of agree in a lot of things. The more you purify, you start to feel it even more.
Hmm.
My God, you realize we are in the deep of the pit here,
We're
you
in
know?
hell, I mean, right? This is where Satan is, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so I had you answered a few questions because I wanted to know how your family or friends responded, and I know you mentioned how your family responded, but
My
friends.
friends, I mean, they just kind of, everybody thought I was crazy, and honestly, I would have thought I was crazy for just all of a sudden getting smacked with this energy in my belly and then all this stuff coming out and I'm telling people all this stuff. I would have thought I was crazy. But for the most part, the people that loved me, that had genuine love, were
Mm-hmm.
still there. And that taught me that as well, that it's okay to be authentic because the people that have genuine love for you are still going to be there. And
Yes.
then everything else, all the pieces on the board are going to rearrange themselves to the way they should be.
Yes, yes. And so in that, I want to just mention, 'cause I'm trying to keep everything together, how important, like first of how many people who have had these experiences over time and made their way, and even now to this day, it's probably still happening, into the crazy house or, the system or under serious pills or, chemicals that were just actually making them crazy if they weren't already. But we had so many messengers, is really what you can call them, who we lost because as a society, we just throw that under the rug. We just don't understand it, so it's crazy. We label it that, and then no one wants to hear it. And so that in itself probably pushed back our evolution to some extent, right? But then here's the other weird thing: it's like people, it might have felt crazy. I mean, for you, I'm sure it was an interesting experience in years of trying to work it out. But it's like people watch movies and you kind of think, oh, that's so cool. You know what I mean? Like if they saw your experience in the movie, they'd be like, oh, like why does that happen to him and not me? People want these experiences, and even now more so than not. Now that it's becoming less.
They really don't want to feel every piece of
Like no, they don't.
density. And yeah, because you're always, not that it's a bother, I love it and I'm full of love, but
Hmm.
you're always having to make sure your system stays cleansed, that I don't go to a lot of places where there's tons of people very often.
Hmm.
um because of it, I can kind of unattach for a while, enjoy it, but I can't do a lot of it, which is fine with me. I like solitary.
Hmm.
But
Fortress of
yeah, it's
Solitude. Superman's making more sense, right?
exactly, yeah.
But I just mean that people are like the way they run for the Kundalini experience, the way they run for these, lucid dreaming and astral projecting. Like it's become a thing where people are trying to have, in the same way they would take drugs to have these
Well,
experiences
it's
of being
become a
not
cool
here.
fad. Yeah, it's become a
Yes.
fad. For me, it's like, oh my God. And I've gone through the judgment from the Christians for speaking about Christ and how we are the body of Christ, so we should embody and become the Christ,
Yes.
and that he was our brother. So I get persecuted by Christians and the New Agers who think I'm religious. So it's pretty funny. But it's
Yes.
all, a lot of it is shiny distractions from truth
Hmm.
and from really getting to that inner core as far as and as deeply as you can get. And you can only do that through purification and sacrifice of lower self, you know?
Yes. And when we're saying purification, just to make everything very clear to people, we're like fasting, abstaining from what things that we would consider lower activities.
Right.
Or
And the more I abstain, the more potent my energy is, the more it builds up. So you're not releasing, whatever it is, whether you're overeating or whatever it is. You're not releasing and releasing and releasing. You're building up that willpower and that motivation. And it's just where you apply it. You need action to that as well, a routine.
Yes. And it makes sense because one thing I've noticed with NDErs is they say when we leave this body, everything is thought focused. Like whatever you put your intention
Mm-hmm.
or is where you go. And so it makes sense that if you really want to, let's say, use the word master, if you want to master, you know, the real reality, so outside of this matrix, then you have to be able to focus your thoughts and you have to be able to have that willpower of, the power of, will control of your thoughts, I guess is the best way to say it, just that mastery. Otherwise,
And
you'd be flitting all around the place.
a great practice is imagining, believing, and then knowing that it's already finished. Whatever I came here to do, it's already finished. And then try to stretch that belief into a knowing. The same as you know other things. You know how to tie your shoes. You know the grass is green. You know the sky is blue. I know whatever I came to do is already finished. And then work with that signal, because that signal is going to go from your mind all the way down to the root and basically magnify and pull in these higher timelines much faster, especially when you begin to know that it's already done. It's already done. I just need to make sure my resonance and my energy is correct so that my trajectory matches.
And when you're saying higher timelines, to clarify, are you meaning like other dimensions, or you just mean the actual, like getting
Well,
closer to our higher self?
higher self, okay, exists. If you've already thought about it, your higher version, whatever you want to be doing, um, whatever you want your life to be like, then it already exists.
Mm.
So you want to manifest it much faster, whether it's health, whether it's knowing you're already healed. If you spend your time knowing you're already healed versus asking for healing, you'll have a much different response from the body, because it works off of cellular memory and subconscious, 90% of it. So just like PTSD, when you're triggered and you have a response, because it's been programmed and the body can't tell the difference, you can program the body to not tell the difference between it's already happened. And you can quantum leap very fast.
Yes. And it's, I mean, when you put all these things together, it makes sense when you have the person who is the, adept or the, trying to become more spiritually powerful, while they're usually sitting quietly, like
Mm-hmm.
literally quiet, eyes closed, and just going in and just working through all these things.
And
It's,
simple things like, I am safe. Now gauge how much of yourself believes that. Take a look at the gap. That gap is how much signal is blocking. Okay, so try to reinsert that signal again. A little breath work in between. I am safe. I'm already loved. And you want to be the programmer. That's the idea. Because if you go out into the world, they're going to program you for you unless you do the
Mhm.
programming.
Yes, and we're being programmed all day anyway. If we're watching TV, listening to certain music, and being around certain people.
Mm-hmm.
And in childhood, that's why childhood can be so traumatic for so many people, because you're dealing with the programming of somebody who may or may not have your best interest, or just
Yeah,
may
for
not be knowing
sure.
what they're doing,
And you're not even aware of it. You're just a sponge, up until
Yes.
what, age 7?
Ay, ay, ay. Yes. Um, okay, so okay, have you noticed any paranormal gifts? Obviously, like you're a psychic now, right? So paranormal gifts after your NDE experience and any heightened sensations. You mentioned some, but if there's been any other like heightened senses, like some people say they see colors, auras, all types of things. So,
Yeah, a lot of visions come and go. A lot of clear cognizance where I'll get a download and I'll just know something. As well as I'll see loved ones during sessions sometimes, but it's not something I focus on communicating with them. Like, I don't communicate with spirits. I don't spend my time trying to communicate with spirits. I spend my time focusing and cultivating the energy of source within me,
mm,
and then things just happen. So yeah, human spirits. I've had seen shadows and silhouettes. I've experienced entities. Um, Definitely during removal sessions. Um,
and go into that again, because again, this is about helping people, and they're not understanding how you can be walking around. And I said this recently to a friend who lives in like the projects. I had read a article about thought forms, and they mentioned that in places like that, like places, clearly like in prison and places where it's extra
mm-hmm.
like just really not happy overall, that these are areas where these thought forms stick and stay and just wait to just pounce on people.
Mm-hmm.
It also mentioned that sometimes if somebody has a tragic death and they're not understanding that they should move on, so quote unquote a ghost, that these energies, if they had addictions, will kind of migrate or kind of prowl these areas where they know people are living lives where they have a lot of sadness, depression, and addictions. And if they have something similar, they'll just keep kind of sucking that
Oh,
energy
it's
from them.
see, it's part of them, but it's not all of them. Part of them went up and part of them
Oh,
stays until it kind of learns how to love again so it can resonate and become whole with
wow.
itself, just like when we're in life, right? We're
Mm,
learning how to love and become whole with ourselves, our shadow.
mm,
Um, but also lots of supernatural experiences, you know, with the Holy Spirit falling on me. Um, one day I was beating myself up, and then all of a sudden this voice comes in and starts telling me all these beautiful things about myself, all these people I helped.
mm,
And then it was like a reflex. Well, first I asked, you know, who it was, and they said, I am. And I hadn't heard the reference, didn't know what that meant at the time. I asked again, what do you mean? Who are you? I am. And then on the third I am, when I asked the third time, it was like something pushed up from underneath in my gut. And I started to feel and see all these memories separately, but at the same time. And I still can't explain it. And I started to cry. And so supernatural experiences like that, definitely entities, human spirits who would come here and still occasionally do sometimes. Like I'll sense them and I'll feel them right here on the side of my head.
mm.
They'll come here to move up and they'll tell me specifically that they were guided here or they just were shot here to move up into resonance or to learn something and move up into the higher realms, become whole again. So I'm like, I guess I'm teaching them too, or they're sitting there watching. I don't know.
Wow. That, oh my, I've been getting truth bumps all this time, but that, like, everything is just like, give me a second. Because that is beautiful. And that's what, if people can just drop their, I guess, prejudices is really what it comes down, their spiritual prejudices enough, they'd realize how beautiful this is. Like someone who wasn't given, or wasn't surrounded by religion is having this authentic experience when they're down, where the Holy Spirit, and this is what the Holy Spirit does, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of its MO, comes and just lifts you up, and is saying the I am that you didn't even know what it was referencing. You're like, I am what? Like, who is this?
Yep,
And this is
basically.
this
And
is the I am. That's awesome. And then to think that you or we or all of us in some way, shape, or form, and it also makes you really want to be walking integrity and moving integrity at all times, are
mm,
helping these lost souls, is what you, I guess, can term them, to lift up and to get back home.
I realized how sacred these vessels and containers were, you know, and the energy and how valuable it was. What a sacred bank account it is, and how little attention we pay to spending our energy the same we do as spending in other ways.
Yes, yes, yes. And I hope this is motivation. And I'm talking to myself as well, like for people who want to help. Like there's a lot of people who are just natural healers. If you have a desire to help, and that thought has come in your head once or twice in your life, you are here to help, you know?
If you can embody a belief so strongly in something that will help others embody when you hold space for them, then that's powerful.
Yes. And so instead of feeling down or trying to commit suicide to get out of here, I was just responding to a message on YouTube where someone said they had done that. And because it's such a horrible place, I totally 1,000,000% understand. But if we, as those light workers or, the lighthouses here, when we have those moments, just get outside of our own head and our own thoughts, or even possibly others'
Hmm.
thoughts, because sometimes those are not your thoughts, and you mentioned that, that as well.
Yeah,
Like
you have to not attach to it and understand that
mhm,
you're like a receiver and you have signals coming through you from all these fields around you because you can
mhm,
only see 3% of the light spectrum with your eyes. So you have all these fields. You don't want to attach to this stuff or believe things outside of your identity, because they're false embodiments. I was there too. I was in the, the whole suicide, the addiction, the overdose thing in my early years after my car accidents. And I'm thankful for that education, because it allowed me to feel a love and believe a love that was so redeeming to somebody who felt so unworthy at one time, that I could honestly tell others they can do it, and show them how. And it's a matter of flicking the light on between your mind and your heart, mind-heart coherence, and just generating that electric potential through your belief and the power of knowing.
Yes. And I love that. I'm going to start mentioning some of the things you said, because I was writing feverishly, but this is reminding me of when you said um, that we have the power just in believing that we're sovereign, just in that belief in itself, that can help
To
to,
become sovereign, yeah, just in the
yeah,
belief.
yes, to free us. And what are we being freed from? So like, I want you to get into that. Like, what is our predicament here in regards to light versus darkness and
I
our
would say
energy?
anything you are aware of that is keeping you from living how you want to live. If you're not aware of it, then you're kind of just experiencing it. You haven't learned from it yet. And there are things to learn from it. The contrast is valuable. Now, when you've had your fill and you say enough is enough, then that's bondage. When you're aware you're creating separation between yourself and feeling love,
Mhm.
when you're becoming numb, then that's bondage. That's dark overstepping its territory. So sometimes it just needs a little push. It's like two powerful magnets being stuck together. You need to change frequencies and use your mind and the power as a creator that your creator gave you.
Okay. Yeah, because you had mentioned that the electric potential within the human being is just, you can get that just by knowing that you're sovereign and
Mm-hmm.
accentuating the positive aspects and discharging the lower aspects.
As well as connecting to the Trinity. I don't want to leave that out, because I was shown the Trinity at 4. And it wasn't religious to me. It was 3 points of energy, and they were in the shape of a triangle. One here, one here, one here, and in the center was my heart. And I could connect all 3 into one in the present moment. And this was like connecting to a circuit, almost like flipping a circuit breaker on a house, and the current starts running of electricity, except life force energy. So connecting to the Trinity, claiming your identity and believing it, knowing it, and then not sacrificing it. Yeah, that's the electric potential.
And explain the Trinity, to just clarify, especially for someone who is not maybe Christian or even understand what the, Trinity
Sure.
is. What in your mind do you mean by the Trinity?
Well, for me, it was 3 points of energy coming from the same place, but it was almost like a vehicle um, with us inside. And I'm seeing the symbol of alchemy, but it's almost like our energy being housed. And we're able to harness this electric potential. But what I do when I do this, I ask the Holy Spirit to come down into my consciousness, or the Holy Breath. I ask the Christ or the Law of One to expand within me. And then I ask God or Creator to surround me. And I'm using it to expand. And I'm using it to get my energy flowing again. So to me, it's 1 and 3 and 3 and 1. At the end of the day, it's all one anyway.
So it's kind of like the idea when we talk about the law of one, we talk about the source,
Mm-hmm.
and I love using.
It's a circuit basically that helps us create a 0 point.
Mm. So source is like the ultimate. That's the creative or the energy that created everything at
Yeah,
the
I would
basis.
say.
And then there's a lot of people who believe that starts to break up into, you know, different aspects until it becomes
Mhm.
like an insane amount of, beings that are running around doing different things.
Yeah,
So it's
the only ones I'm really convinced of are the Trinity and then the 7,
so you think
and
so the Trinity, just to be clear, is that being broken up into three
Yeah, I
energies.
believe so. Yeah, and then we're
Okay.
able to bring it back together into one.
Okay.
And then the seven archangels, the seven Elohim, but then
Right.
also the seven demonic princes. And I believe the reason is because we have these embodiments available to us, to experience reality. And I think that's really what they're here for. They're frequencies that exist, units of consciousness within all mankind that we can embody and play out in this wild video game, whatever we're doing.
Okay. And you said all humans are made in the image of the creator. Are we talking about the human body? Or are we talking about the soul spark? Or like what?
This the spirit, yeah,
The spirit. Okay. Oh yeah, that's easy. Okay.
soul.
Okay. Um, and
So it's there for redemption, basically. It's there for integration.
explain that a little bit.
Well, what you believe becomes you. So the more you believe your divine blueprint, then you become the divine embodied.
Okay.
So it's a matter of using your neural activity, and creating that resonance within yourself.
Okay. And now the Matrix. So you mentioned the Matrix, and no matter what I'm watching, I always go back to the Matrix. Like it's amazing. It in itself was hijacked from, I guess, the woman who wrote it initially by the guys who made the movie, etc. But that's just the MO of this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people who are really doing the real work are just being, probably can barely pay for, food. But so in regards to what you saw, in regards to the Matrix, what are you seeing? What is it? Is it similar to the movie? Is it as scary and dark and dystopic, or is it just like what does it look like? What does that mean?
Uh, I don't know. It's like being logged into a video game. An understanding I'm the energy playing the character, but I'm not the character itself. And behind me is a whole nother world. So when I become the observer of my movie, if you will, and watch my character and everything going on, you're kind of able to see, because you're already in that perspective of I'm behind, I'm observing. Now you're also observing others and what's going on with others, but there's programs everywhere. So yes, it's as dark for sure, but it's also equally as light. It's the age-old dark collective and light collective battling each other through human consciousness. These non-human entities and these beings of light, waging their war through density. But it's so much programming to steal and embody, to put you in an identity so that you have a fraction of yourself or a part of yourself you're not accessing. And now that energy is able to be harvested, and used for this dark collective to become stronger. And that's why it's important to believe you're all things, that you're sovereign energy, that you have no energy to give to this dark agenda that is. And we really see it now, that it's after our identities, after innocence, after everything pure, put it that way. Everything sacred.
Yes. You answered. I was going to ask about the how it correlates to the Matrix, where they're sucking the human energy, and it makes perfect sense now. And so the ways that we combat that is to stay sovereign, to know that we are what we decide we want to be. Does that make
And to
sense?
be conscious and work on our own trauma, and not to project it onto others, and to understand it's our responsibility to heal the wounds our parents gave us, anybody else gave us. We're the only ones that can do it. And to just have that level of discipline or dedication to maintain ourselves as beings of energy as well, like we do our bodies and our relationships and everything else, and understand this is what I'm going to live through. This is my nervous system. This is everything. This is going to interpret how I have my whole life. So it's vital to cultivate it.
And it goes even deeper than that, because like we're talking about, I think we both agree that time doesn't exist outside of this realm. So our past lives are really our simultaneous lives. And then it goes back to what you saw with the spokes of the wheel and the memories being on I think you said the outside. So would
Mm-hmm.
that be, how would the other lives it be incorporated in that? And do we also need to heal our past lives?
Oh, for sure. We're doing it now because we're in a certain time period where everything is moving up. There's an opportunity to do it. So the past life fragments that are staying around are now getting their opportunity to move up. How they would fit into that screen particularly, I'm not sure if they're in a different area, if I was only seeing one part of it, but it was like a movie screen around me. But I know they get recycled and they serve again, and then they get to go home and become whole. And everything seems to be becoming singular in
Hmm.
this moment. And it's kind of what I'm aiming for myself is singular aspect of God, rid of as much interference as I can of
Yeah.
love.
Yes. Love is everything, right?
Yeah.
It's the answer. It's the key. I something that's been going through my mind lately, because I always see the Wizard of Oz and that whole story as being somebody who had an NDE and expressing what they experienced in it. And I keep hearing over the rainbow, like kind of the idea of home is over the rainbow. Like you
Hmm.
kind of get your rainbow light body and then you can go home, you can return. I feel like there's some kind of symbolism in that. Um, I wanted to go back to the being that helped you on two, at least at the very least, two occasions. Wh Why do you think they didn't have a face? Like, is that their natural form, or were they hiding it from you? And who do you think it might be?
I think it was just their natural form, and my feeling and knowing now was that it was one of the seven archangels. Um, they were definitely Elohim by all the synchronicities and all the messages and all the teachings and all the things that followed. Because it was years of being guided to start to focus and learn other things and feed myself different things.
Okay. And I'm coming down to, I have just a few more questions. But when you met with the Arcturians, I'm assuming they came to you.
Hmm.
How did that look exactly? Was it in a vision? Was it actually like physically you're seeing them?
Well,
And
they showed up in my room and they started speaking and they said we're Arcturians. They were talking about evolution and ascension and things like that, and they said that I was part of some council somewhere, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, okay, go away. And that's was literally me at the time with everything.
I feel like
So
I've
the
picked them out myself.
Yep, and so I was eating Cheerios at the time. I remember perfectly. So they left. Next time I'm eating Cheerios, they came again. And I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
what's
The
going on with
Arcturian
the
Cheerio.
Cheerios? Yeah. So I was able to look up some information they were telling me because I never heard about the things that they were saying. And I was able to find websites speaking about this stuff. And I was like, so maybe there's something to this. And the voice, when it communicated, I couldn't see them. I could feel them slightly, but I could hear them perfectly. So it was like, it wasn't like a spirit that would come in and go out.
Mhm.
Um, it was perfect. So that's what led me to believe that maybe it was truthful, and then finding the information. So then they returned and they talked about purification, evolution of humanity, ascension coming, and a lot of those things.
And in regards to ascension, do they see that as I guess like in the law, sorry, the raw material when they talk about moving from third density to like fifth and the new earth and all that, is that the same idea that they have for ascension, or does it look
I
differently?
believe so. I haven't really broken it down in like communication with them, like what's what. And I'm like more of a feeler. I just kind of follow the feelings. But they have since come into healing sessions and worked with me and taught me about human design and entities and the non-human reptilian entities and things like that. So
Oh God, the reptiles. Okay. All
yeah, they're
right.
stubborn.
And so, like for groups like this that are seemingly, because I trust nothing until I trust it, but seemingly helping us, is it because they are at a higher uh, or advanced level and they get help for not help, but it helps them to help us to some extent. Like we're all kind of pulling each other up to the
Yeah,
top.
it's just like you going through something and you knowing how to help someone else, except that we or they have gone through what your species has and know how to help you
Okay. Cool, cool.
because they serve obviously the one.
Yes. The law of one. So it comes back to that. There's truth to that. Okay. I just want to see if I make sure I'm asking all the questions that I wanted to. Um, and you had mentioned the blueprint of creation. Do you feel like there's anything else that you wanted to say about that, like what you saw or?
Um, just, how precious every thought and feeling is, because it's going to determine and build the structure of your reality that you live inside through your nervous system. And this is made in conjunction with that blueprint, um,
Mm,
the quantum field, but also your divine blueprint. That was the blueprint of creation. Everything's built on it. Eventually through our actions, through our embodiment, but it all starts from thoughts to heart to embodiment. So I was going somewhere else with that. But the divine blueprint, that would be personal. It's almost like when I was shown it, it almost looked like a file in a computer. And it
mm,
was, told to me, you can redeem yourself. You got to believe you are this, or people can.
okay. And so I think two things that I definitely want to get some clarification on, but I had missed this in the previous interviews, but I think I don't know how I missed it because it's so beautiful. But you said that while after the first NDE, uh, after I guess speaking to the being, that you were given a glimpse of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So were you seeing that through there, like when you were looking into
Yeah, it
their
was like in the face. It was like the closer I got to the
wow.
face, then it started to become like it looked like a beautiful nature scene, sunny day,
Mm,
just flowers, no buildings or cars or anything. But the
mm,
flowers were alive. Their colors were alive. They had their own entity. And then,
mm,
old people, elderly over here, I could feel that children's laughter.
mm,
And it was just crystal clear. Like there was no gaps. You know how we have gaps in truth everywhere in our society?
mm.
It's like you go to buy a product and you read the box and it matches nothing that it says on the front of the box. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I want
I want my
so
Cheerios.
yeah, I want all natural, this and that, no glyphosate Cheerios. Don't tell me it's good for my heart if it's going to have me growing a third eyeball.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very perfect. Um, but
Now,
warm, very warm and inviting. And that's why I was like, yeah, I want to go.
now here's where, so this is a question I had. I feel like I wrote this even before, which makes no sense, but I guess it all comes together. Um, but if there is heaven, so you saw it with your own eyes, literally, you saw, or your own
I
spirit eyes,
saw it and I felt it. I know
and
it
felt
exists
it.
because I felt it and I know that, we are it embodied.
So what a lot of people, they watch these NDEs and they have all these questions. Like one of the biggest questions is about karma, is about heaven, is about hell, is about all of that, like how it could be possible, how does it all fit in? Because you have some people who come back and say, no, we're all,
I think
heaven is
it's
our birthright.
I think it's compartmentalized based a lot on personal holdings and debts within yourself and embodiments of energies. That's going to tell you what kind of afterlife you experience. Do I think you can redeem yourself in the afterlife? Yeah, sure. I hear the people call out to, you know, Jesus and they see a light. I think it all runs on thought. But I think as you pass, and I think for the lower experiences, people are passing through their subconscious and all their demons and their personal stuff,
Mhm,
um, largely. And I believe that's we get to live in these personal heavens. There's many rooms.
mhm. I mean, you mentioned, and this to me was very important, and that's something I totally agree. You mentioned that none of those negative emotions or things, or nothing dark or negative could be in that space because it doesn't vibrate. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
totally into frequency, so I completely understand. I resonate with that idea, and that's why I've always thought like, okay, people, I would love. I mean, everybody's done something wrong in their lifetime. I would love to think that we all just fly straight to heaven and it's awesome. Like yes, I would totally jump on that bandwagon, but I also like to think and be kind of realistic, about things. And I noticed that a lot of indie ears, when they when they go to the other side, they notice that they're still them. They're still that their identity or their personality. So I just
Hmm.
wonder if in those scenarios where they believe that we all do just are in this like
I
sometimes
think
I think of heaven.
there's stages of transformation, even on the other side, and growth.
Yes, yes. And that's what I was kind of getting to in my thought process is that there's no time. It's not like we're worrying about a timeline. Like, okay, guys, you have 5 more years to get it together. You're going to hell forever. Like,
No,
you know,
seriously, no time. There's only expansion
yeah. So this is
or contraction. Yeah.
so eventually, because it seems also like what I've kind of gathered, and it's just an idea. These are just ideas.
Time is a bodily idea. You know, so the more you focus on your body and the earth and the world, the more you focus on that.
And rotations, yes. Um, but I do think that it's the thing where source, this being, this massive entity, every now and then might, and I've heard this in other NDEs, bring everything right back together, like go back to one, you
Yeah.
know? And I don't know if we maintain at that point, we maintain our identity. But just things I just think about every now and then.
Uh,
I'm gonna mention something that
I'm
is
never gonna lose my humor, man. Doesn't matter what I become.
it's like I will always be me. I had a whole point of time where I would be sitting there just bawling, crying, thinking about this being by itself forever, like for all eternity. And it's something that always made sense to me. Like it just, I'm like, okay, we're saying God is all powerful and it can only be one because nothing can be above it or, to the size of it. So I mean, it's a lonely, you know. And I'm such a weirdo. I'm sitting there like just, And then I realized, but that's where we come into play. Like that's why, it had this creative idea of making others so that it could have those experiences, and why the family is like the nucleus. Like you come in a family whether you want to or not in this experience.
So that you can share all these feelings, and love itself, who created us, can feel these and witness them and reflect on them. Because, being out there, you have no sense of self. And then, okay, well, let me create. I'm going to create with this thought. How about I do that? And then the
Yes,
first thing was created with thought and word.
yes,
And then here we are. Now love is remembering itself again.
yes, yes, yes. And I think we can get close to ending it on that note. Like we went through the darkness and the turmoil, and we're back in the light.
Yep,
You know,
absolutely. So
and
many
that's
times I was saved and I was a skeptic and, pushed God away and pushed the angels away and everything. And I
mhm,
can't tell people how much you are all worthy of redemption.
yes, yes. And God loves us all ultimately,
Yeah.
right? Like we're
Yeah.
we're we're
Your
His
identity
creation.
is the energy of love. I mean, you're literally made from it. So don't
Yeah,
sacrifice it, bring it down for approval or anything like that.
yes. Okay. And so in closing up, I want you to let everybody know what you're doing, and how to reach you, and then any kind of message that you want to share. We'll just
Well,
close with
right now I'm sitting in a chair. No, they
that.
can I will be traveling in September to Durham and Raleigh, North Carolina for an IANS conference, speaking to people about near death, doing some healing at a couple churches, which I'm super excited about.
Okay.
Um, but other than that, you can reach me through my site, trinityquantumhealth.com. That's trinityquantumhealth.com. Feel free to take a look at the calendar, send me an email, whatever. But right now, I'm mostly doing one-on-one and group sessions. Every third Monday, I do a group session where even if people can't pay, I let people come in because I really feel like that's more of a reflection on my relationship with Source. So I do groups every third Monday as well as personal sessions.
Perfect. Perfect. So you're doing the work. You're doing the work. You
Oh,
finally stopped.
absolutely. In between all that, I'm cleansing and going out into nature, and then
Mhm.
just, man, appreciating life and being here and being able to witness helping people in that way and all the experiences I've had. I'm grateful.
And your goal eventually is to have that retreat, right? You want that
Oh,
nature retreat, or
absolutely.
so
One
anybody who's
one
listening.
that's so sacred, where people step on the land, they heal.
Mm-hmm.
you know, something like that. Because, I have the wild stories of people saying, hey, you appeared to me as an apparition and you told me all these things. And I'm talking in the tens and 20s. And so I would like to have, and all the testimonials of the work that God does through me. So I would love to have a place where that can be done through people right on the land. You have a day for seniors where they can come out, have a day where kids can come out and, learn about nature, learn about the connection to those higher frequencies and feelings that help us heal, really. And then
Yes.
a day for veterans, whole thing's already finished. I just
Yeah.
need to make sure my energy's tuned in to get there.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And if I can help, I mean, I have my land that I'm trying to do something similar, like we can collaborate,
Hmm.
but overall, so like I think we had a great interview. I'm gonna close off now by telling everybody and my soul brother here, Stephen, that you are loved always. We are all loved. And at the highest level, past all of the AI and the matrix and the, negative energies, everything is okay and will always be okay. You are safe, you are eternal, you are golden. We thank you, Stephen, for your courage in sharing your experience and helping us. And I hope that some people who might have still been asleep are now awake or coming close to awake, and you helped to do that. Um, what uh, what message do you want to like end off on? Like, is there something that you just want to say to the world to remind them to keep them upbeat? Like, what do you want to share as we sign off here?
I would say, make sure you give yourself that time to create that neural activity, through reclaiming your identity and knowing yourself. Just 10 minutes a day, knowing yourself and charging and re-inputting that program into yourself can correct all of the days. And I know it and I've seen it and I've lived it because I was tired of sacrificing my identity for approval. And that's not something you need to do. You just need to claim your identity and allow things to arrange around you. You are loved. You deserve to feel loved. You're already safe. You're already loved. You're already all the things that you're seeking through other people. You just need the realization of that and somebody to remind you and tell you.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, thank you so much. And signing off here. Blessings to everybody. Bye bye.